Can we do one of those things where it's like we say something like completely off topic to like start the video, and then we lead into what we're actually doing? Like it's like a weird intro
We
kind of thing.
can, but what do you want to talk about?
Hey, what's going on, you guys? My name is the Raptor, and today we have something a little different. For one thing, I am not alone. I am joined by my number one biggest fan, my brother, Ryan.
Yeah, I'm like number 3 or something.
Number 3, okay, that's fair. And today we're going to be talking about the newest death battle that came out, Martian Manhunter versus Silver Surfer. Some people might be wondering, why are we doing this? This is weird. Not something I've ever done before. Why are we talking about this fight specifically? The reason is because this is actually a very personal fight for both of us. Before either of us were like anywhere deep into the Versus community, this was a fight that we had been debating ourselves over and over and over. If you have anything to add to that.
No, like I wouldn't say this is my most anticipated death battle ever, but I would say it's my most anticipated one that we have talked about consistently, and also my most anticipated one that I thought could realistically happen.
Right, yeah. Because, I made like a top 10 list. This was nowhere near that top 10 list for most wanted death battles. But as far as us debating with each other, aside from like maybe Bugs versus Mickey, this was like the big one where we disagreed and we wanted to see what Death Battle would say. So yeah, we thought this would be fun, just have like a bit of a conversation, maybe a little better than doing a prediction together, since that is kind of more structured nowadays. But we thought having like a conversational style after the fact would have been fun. So this isn't really going to be like a very hardcore review. It's basically just going to be talking about how we feel, how we want. So if you're into that, then stick around. We'd love to have you. And if not, sorry.
Well, it's interesting how you talk about how, that we've been talking about this fight since way back when.
Yep.
Because obviously we've gone down different paths since then.
Oh, yes.
You've obviously gone way harder into the Versus community, making these videos, these predictions, these reactions. I've stepped a little bit further away from the Versus community.
Yeah.
And when I watch Death Battle now, it's a lot more for the purpose of learning about the characters or getting another level of respect for the characters.
Oh, yeah, and I do it for that reason, too, absolutely. But yes, I understand what you're saying. There was a time, I want to say, maybe like season 2 or 3, where I would say that, aside from me making the occasional video, we were basically like the same level of involvement.
Yeah.
But then maybe around the time of like season 6 or 7, like when I started getting more involved, I think you started getting less involved.
Yeah.
And I don't blame you for that, to be honest.
No, I was just getting sort of disenchanted by the whole thing, which is why I'm happy to say that I loved this episode.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, great, because not everyone feels that way.
Really? What are people throwing shade at it for?
So, okay. Well, first of all, I'm going to say that I really enjoyed the episode as well. I'd say, for me, it's probably my favorite Marvel vs. DC, at least of the season. I did enjoy the other ones well enough, but this one had, like, that flavor, like that really, like it felt like Martian Manhunter and Silver Surfer were pulled from the comics. This is how they would fight. And the thing that not a lot of people like I've heard some people say like, oh, like, yeah, the ending was cool, but nothing really happened. Or, like there should have been more action in it. And I think that, like, if you genuinely believe that and, like, you wanted to see more from that, like, that's fine.
Well, there's no wrong reason to dislike an
exactly,
episode.
yeah, and I think that's another thing some people don't always understand. But for me, like, it seems like there are some people who either were never going to give this episode a chance because it came out at a time when they were doing a lot of Marvel and DC, and some people didn't like that this matchup was being announced, or they didn't like that they actually prioritized characterization over, like, mindless action.
But see, that's why it works so well for me. I didn't really care about Death Battle sort of like episode to episode. So the fact it came out at a time where maybe Marvel versus DC was a little bit oversaturated, that didn't bother me. And as far as characterization goes, this is exactly what I want. I think it'd be so much fun if there was like a Versus show, which was just sort of like superficially a Versus show, but it was actually hardcore, these are how cool the characters are.
Right, yeah.
If every episode was like this, I'd be way more into the series.
Well, see, like, I think it would just honestly be better if, like we stick with Death Battle, like, it's still, like, the hardcore analyses and stuff, but it would be better if all of the episodes had such good characterization and presentation specific to the characters themselves that the people who are fans of these characters always get a little more out of it. Because this feels like a fight that was made for Marvel and DC fans specifically. As someone who knows Martian Manhunter and Silver Surfer and loves them, more so Martian Manhunter, to be honest, but as someone who loves both the characters, this is exactly what I wanted out of a Marvel and DC fight.
Well, yeah, I've loved Martian Manhunter pretty much the same amount since we started watching him in the Justice League cartoons, and I've only grown to love Silver Surfer more as time has gone on, especially as I've gotten more into the Fantastic Four side of Marvel.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. As far as just excitement for the characters, even in a vacuum, I love this.
Yeah, and the big thing about these characters is that they have so much power. They are ridiculously strong, but they rarely ever use it. And more so than just, the comics don't want to use these characters' powers to the fullest degree because of plot. Like, this is literally, they consciously choose to not use their powers to the full extent because they love life. And the ending where it's like we are fighting, we don't understand why. Like, it's the first time, I believe, where they've used that, like, being aware of what Death Battle is in a non-comedic way. Yeah. And I think it was the best fight they could have done for it. I just think, the characterization was so good there, and we've had so many fights where they prioritize just mindless action.
Yeah, I don't know if people want the same thing every 2 weeks, but this was a breath of fresh air for me, certainly.
Yeah.
This is my favorite episode since SpongeBob vs. Aquaman.
Really?
Which is my favorite episode of the show, period.
That's another thing that might piss some people off.
They're different. They're not the same as everything else we get. I don't always, even if they're characters that I like, I don't always retain too many strong emotions about any individual episode.
That's fair.
Because it just feels like we're getting the same thing over and over again. I prefer it when it feels new.
Keep in mind again for everyone, Ryan, my brother, is not he's not a versus debater in really any sense of the word. He's a geek like me, but that's kind of as far as it goes. And the occasional, who would win in a fight. But yeah, again, this feels like a fight that was made for Marvel and DC fans specifically, regardless of versus debating.
Yeah.
And again, that's what I think all episodes should strive to be, because, you love versus debating. I get it. But you should also remember why you love the characters that we're debating about. And this is one of those fights where I think you are going to like it less if you just watch the animation. Because if you just watch the animation and you don't know the characters that well, then you might be scratching your head or thinking why wasn't there more to this animation? But if you watch the analyses and you know the characters well enough, then they blend so well together, and it makes for an incredibly well-rounded episode, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know that we have shows like Superpower Beatdown, where a lot of the enjoyment does come from, wow, look how much effort they put into that. And obviously they put a lot of effort into these episodes as well. But I very much think that the analysis is where the heart of the show lies. And I think that Wiz and Boomstick as characters were created for that reason. Because it's not just, an animation of who's going to win. We get a whole story and a whole sense of connection, not just between the characters, but between the characters they're choosing to have fight and the viewer.
Absolutely. And that's really where the research and the dedication and the passion shines through. It's where they talk about it. Specifically for this episode, for Martian Manhunter, they spent the entire second half, or the entire last third of his analysis, just talking about the crazy, depressing lore and stories that he has gone through. And I'm thinking, I don't remember the last time they focused so much on this.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with who would win in a fight. It's just, this is how cool the character is.
And something that I keep bringing up, because I think this is so important for people to remember, is that Death Battle is not just Respect Threads, the series. It's not just you're listing feats and listing capabilities and then immediately comparing them. It is truly a celebration of the characters, what they've gone through. Even other episodes like Darth Vader versus Obito, they spent a good chunk of time just talking about what they've gone through, regardless of if you could scale that stuff, So I do really appreciate it, especially as a lover of these characters.
So clearly I have no sense of what the general consensus is about any given episode. Yeah. But I really hope this gets enough positive feedback and that Wiz and Boomstick take it to heart. Because I just like to see more like this.
Now, obviously, as we mentioned at the beginning of this video, this is a big debate between us. I have always been on Silver Surfer's side, even though I like Martian Manhunter a little more, and you were on Martian Manhunter's side for winning. So, after all what this was said and done, Silver Surfer did win. How do you feel about that?
My only gripe with it is that they didn't throw in a line this was a close one, or this could have gone either way. Because Death Battle does that a lot, even when it doesn't
That's kind of a meme in the community, actually, when a fight is generally agreed upon to not be close.
Sure.
But then they say it was a close fight anyway, and some people are like, well, little.
But the thing is, in this case, they didn't really give one character some giant strength or speed multiplier over the other character like they do a lot. It came down a lot more to just, it's more likely Surf would be able to kill Martian Manhunter than the other way around.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, you could still make the argument either way. And if Death Battle truly believes that it is a stomp, I would just say I straight up disagree. So that was my only gripe. You could argue it's implied because they did say that they had counters to a lot of each other's abilities.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the only thing that I didn't like about that. I thought that, they should have emphasized how close it was a little bit more.
Interesting.
As far as the result is concerned, no, I don't have an issue with it. And again, I probably would have had more of an issue with it years ago. But not only do I know more about the characters now, I just have a different relationship with this type of YouTube video.
Right, yeah. No, I'm happy that that you're not super disappointed by that or anything.
No, it's just a great fight, and I am not one to let the fact that my preferred character lost, or the character I was rooting for lost, I'm not one to let that dictate my feelings on the episode.
Right.
Obviously, I love SpongeBob, but one of my favorite episodes, probably my second favorite to SpongeBob vs. Aquaman, is Balrog vs. TJ Combo.
That was a good one. Yeah.
For the fight and for the conclusion alone. I didn't even care about either of those characters. I played like one Street Fighter game a little bit, and that's really all. That's the extent of my knowledge. So yeah, it's not as much about the characters. Of course, if they went as in depth about two characters that I wasn't familiar with as they did for Surfer and Manhunter, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed the episode as much. The fact I wasn't to these characters definitely did improve my viewing experience. Yeah. But yeah, I can see a fight that I really love that has characters that I'm not even familiar with, and it'll still be one of my favorites.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And yeah, for this episode, like the animation, like again, there were some people saying that nothing happened. Stuff happened, like even just aside from like, the ending being a little slow or whatever, like there was still stuff that happened, like that big dragon that Martian Manhunter turned into, like that's straight out of the comics.
I was waiting for stuff like that.
But that was so cool, like breaking the board, like they didn't have to do that, but they put it in anyway,
And personally, I think that people forget how crazy it is to have just, they're inside a star is in a vacuum. Like it happens in so many of these episodes now. But if you think about it, how far away is the sun? How big is that thing? How hot is it? Yeah. You can't just pretend like nothing happened, just because it's not, the craziest episode ever.
It's also that, their resources, not to say that their resources are spread thin, but they have to keep in mind that every episode is its own product, and they have to make sure each episode gets enough attention, even if maybe some episodes don't get as much as they would like.
Yeah.
So for this episode, maybe behind the scenes, I have no idea if this is true, but maybe there were some people thinking, we didn't put as much time into this one as we wanted to. Like maybe the fight animation could have been a little longer. Maybe they could have spent a little more time on the bombastic nature before getting into the philosophical nature. But if there was one episode where I think it was fine that they didn't have enough time to make maybe more bombastic stuff, it would be this one.
You wouldn't want overwhelming visuals while you're getting into the dialogue at the end.
Exactly.
And you also wouldn't want to have overwhelming visuals and then just have it feel jarring when you get to the end and then you stop with that. So yeah, I think as far as one cohesive piece of animation, this did exactly what it needed to.
Yeah, I'd agree. And again, there are some people who are just going to say like, I'm here for the versus debate stuff. I'm here for the cool fights where people shoot lasers or whatever. And if you were truly disappointed, then I can't stop you from being disappointed. I'm really sorry you felt that way. But again, like, as I've said many times on this channel, my brother and I, like, Marvel and DC is like our biggest shit. Like that's the stuff we love. So this really felt like it was a fight that was made for us. And yeah, they didn't prioritize maybe the versus debate tropes as much, but I think that was perfect for this fight, not just because they could prioritize the characterization, but also for us, one of us being a big versus debate fan and the other one maybe not so much. But again, you're saying that you loved it because they prioritized other stuff. And for it being such a big childhood fight for us, I actually think it couldn't have turned out better in that way.
No, I'd agree.
And of course, there are other things I could say. Like, I do think maybe they could have made the animation a little longer, but again, I don't know. Like, maybe some of the resources were spread a little thin. I still am really happy with how it turned out. The conclusion, I think, maybe could have gone into a little more detail, because eventually it kind of just devolved into the power cosmic can do anything. And I'm like, I maybe want to see maybe some more examples of what they're talking about.
You want to elaborate a little bit more on that.
But other than that, like I think again the analyses were so fun to listen to. I actually found some of the jokes quite funny. And yeah, they made Martian Manhunter sound really good. They made both of them sound really good, but Martian Manhunter, it feels like they really put some extra care into.
Yeah, I love the idea that they already knew he was cool, but as they were doing research, they realized how cool it was. And like, we gotta talk about this.
Yeah.
We gotta make sure people know.
Exactly. Yeah.
I do not anticipate really ever being this satisfied with an episode in the future.
Wow.
That's my guess, because
that is high praise.
Because these are characters that I love, and it was an episode that was presented in a way that I really love. There's only a small handful of characters left where I would be this excited if they would appear in Death Battle for the first time.
Do you have any examples you want to share?
Well, I remember you talked about bringing Percy Jackson into the fray.
Yeah.
And I love Percy Jackson, but if I were to choose who he would fight, it would never ever happen. I would love to see Percy Jackson versus Maximum Ride, if anyone's familiar with that book series.
Yeah.
It's a fight that I really like. They both have the whole, they're prophesized to save the world idea, but one of them is more mythological and one of them is more science fiction experiment stuff.
This is another fight that you have been talking about particularly for many, many years.
Yeah, it's kind of my Stitch versus Rocket, but I do not expect it to ever actually happen.
Dude, there was a time where I never thought Stitch versus Rocket would happen, and then when it gained more popularity, I'm like, oh my god, yes.
Yeah, but Maximum Ride is like not. It already reached its peak, fame, so there's no way that's gonna happen.
Well, no, because I've seen like so many matchups for Percy Jackson, and I don't think I've seen literally anyone else on the internet bring up Max.
Right.
Apologies for that, but I do understand your passion for that debate.
And the only other character, I know you've talked about Star Trek as well, the only other character that comes to mind right now is Lieutenant Commander Data. I love that guy, and I'd love to see him in a fight, because he's another one of those characters where it's like his appeal is not that he fights. They've established that he could, break a Klingon if he wanted to.
Yeah.
But he doesn't. So I'd like to see Death Battle tackle him in a similar way.
Dude,
to
it's
this
like
one.
It's like Spock. Like, I brought this up in a video where it's like, I want to see Spock on the show. I don't know who he'd fight. I think some people gave me some suggestions in the comments, and I need to look into that a
There's
little
a lot
more.
of robot characters Data could fight, I'm sure.
Yeah, but just there's no obvious answer, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, the first Star Trek episode they're going to do is probably Kirk versus Han. And I want that one too. That's like on my top 10 most wanted episodes, so I say bring that on. But I am excited for the rest of this season. Bill Cipher versus Discord is coming up next. I know you watched some of Gravity Falls.
Some
right?
of Gravity Falls, certainly more than My Little Pony. And
Same.
I do like Bill Cipher. I'd be rooting for him, but it's not one that I'm nearly as invested in.
Apparently, someone told me that Discord was based off of Q from Star Trek. Which is actually really cool if that's true.
That is kind of cool.
But yeah, I think that's basically everything. So again, just to summarize, I have no issue with what maybe Martian Manhunter versus Silver Surfer was lacking in the traditional sense. I think what they prioritized instead was actually a lot more important.
Yeah.
So that's really, if you want to take like one quote from me, that's basically what I would say. But yeah, I did enjoy the episode. I don't know how I would rank these episodes. I don't know if I'm going to rank them. I don't want to start making comparisons, but I will say that it is probably my favorite Marvel versus DC fight of this season, just because it really felt like it was made for Marvel versus DC, or Marvel and DC fans. It felt like it really was the characters, how they would operate with each other. It felt perfect to me.
So SpongeBob versus Aquaman wasn't this season, right?
No.
So this one's my favorite of the season.
Okay, cool. So yeah, again, he's not a versus debater. I am, but I still enjoyed the episode. I hope that you guys watching could enjoy it, at least to some degree, or even if not that, understand why we like it. So I think that's pretty much everything. Ryan, thank you so much for being on the channel today.
No problem.
I don't know if we're ever going to do this again.
I'll see you guys in like 2 years.
It's been a while since you've been here last, actually. But yeah, I don't know if we're ever going to do this again, but let me know if you guys enjoyed this kind of video. I guess I could do something like this on my own, or maybe with other people if they were interested. But yeah, just a little experiment for today. That's it for me. I will see all of you guys in the next video. Peace out.